May 9, 1945. Berchtesgaden. American soldiers of the 101st Airborne step into the Grand Hotel and find Emmy Goring still wearing her emerald necklace. Still expecting diplomatic immunity. Her husband sits in Allied custody 300 meters north. The thousand-year Rye died 8 days ago. She didn't look like someone who had lost. Not then. The necklace caught the light. The suitcases were packed. She had a letter from Herman. She still thought it would matter. 3 questions hang over everything that follows. What happens to the women who shared beds with the architects of genocide? How do you rebuild a life when your husband's name means murder? And where exactly do you go when an entire nation wants to forget you exist? For 12 years, these women lived as Nazi royalty. State dinners at the Chancellery. Vacations in stolen castles. Jewelry seized from Jewish families across Europe. They raised children in villas built on slave labor, hosted gatherings while trains rolled toward death camps 30 miles away. Now the villas were rubble. The trains had stopped. And the world was looking directly at them. But before we unearth the rest of this account, I have a challenge for you. Drop a comment with one forgotten fragment of history that the textbooks missed. We are here to learn from your findings. If you are committed to our mission of dragging these untold stories into the light, hit the like button and subscribe with the bell on. It is the most vital way to keep the record alive, and if you know a fellow seeker of the truth, send this their way. Germany lay in ruins. The men faced war crimes tribunals. And the women, they had to answer for their own survival in a world that viewed them as accomplices to the greatest evil in modern history. What happened next is not simple. It is not clean. And it is not finished. Emmy Goring was born Emmy Sonman in Hamburg in 1893. A stage actress before she met Herman at a Weimar charity gala in 1932. By 1935, she stood beside the Reichsmarschall at the apex of Nazi power. Mistress of Kerrenhall, that enormous hunting lodge Herman filled with stolen art worth millions. Renaissance paintings ripped from Jewish collections. Renaissance masters hanging in rooms where slave labor quotas were discussed over dinner. She knew the paintings. She knew the rooms. Whether she knew everything else, that became the question. Captain Robert Stack placed Emmy under arrest at 14:30 hours in the hotel's marble lobby. 3 suitcases of clothing. A jewelry case worth $40,000. A letter from Herman begging American protection for his family. The letter failed. By June 1945, Emmy entered Straubing prison for denazification proceedings. The Allied tribunal in Munich reviewed her case across 18 months. Witnesses described her presence at Kerrenhall during meetings about slave labor quotas. Former servants testified about the stolen artworks displayed throughout the estate. Bank records traced luxury purchases to Jewish property seizures. March 21, 1948. 1 year imprisonment, already served. 30% seizure of remaining assets. She walked free. But into what? Kerrenhall was gone. Herman had dynamited it himself in April 1945. The Berlin mansion became Allied headquarters. The Swiss account stayed frozen. There was nothing left to walk back to. By 1952, Emmy worked as a seamstress under the assumed name Emma Schneider. 75 marks monthly. Her daughter Edda attended a Munich boarding school under strict privacy rules, until a teacher recognized the surname during roll call. The 4th school transfer since 1945 followed shortly after. Margaret Himmler faced a different kind of reckoning. While Emmy's guilt was tangled in luxury and proximity, Margaret's was written in letters. Born Margaret Boden in 1893, she married Heinrich Himmler in 1928. She lived quietly at their estate while Heinrich orchestrated what historians now recognize as the systematic machinery of mass destruction. British forces arrested her on May 23, 1945. Among the items found at the estate, silver candlesticks marked with Hebrew inscriptions. Oil paintings missing from Dutch museums since 1942. And a diary entry from October 1943. She wrote about Heinrich's difficult work in the East. She called it his historical mission. That phrase had consequences. The denazification trial delivered 4 years imprisonment plus complete asset forfeiture. Margaret served every day of it at Landsberg prison, the same walls where Hitler wrote Mein Kampf in 1924. She worked the prison laundry earning 30 Pfennig daily. Her daughter Gudrun had spent 6 years in foster care. Forbidden from visiting during the entire sentence. Their reunion happened in a Munich church, arranged by Catholic charity workers. From there, a one-room apartment in Munich's Sendling district. Church relief funds. Night cleaning work. Neighbors knew her as Greta Boden, a war widow from East Prussia. She never spoke publicly about Heinrich again. Ilse Hess endured the longest ordeal of any Nazi wife. Not because of what she did, but because of what she could not end. Her husband Rudolf's bizarre flight to Scotland in May 1941 had left her alone for years before the war even concluded. By October 1946, Nuremberg sentenced him to life imprisonment at Spandau prison in Berlin. She learned his fate through radio broadcasts. Not official notification. Just a voice through a speaker in a quiet room somewhere. What followed was 4 decades of campaigns, petitions, and silence from every government she contacted. In 1955 she published a defense of Rudolph's Scotland mission. British libel laws forced German publishers to withdraw it within 6 months. By 1960, she had collected 43,000 signatures calling for his release. British authorities threatened prosecution for Nazi rehabilitation activities. The petition was abandoned. Rudolf Hess died at Spandau in 1987. He had been imprisoned for 46 years. Ilse had spent most of her adult life trying to bring him home. She never did. Lena Heydrich survived by strategic silence and strategic distance. After her husband Reinhard, the man who chaired the Wannsee Conference and systematized the logistics of the final solution, perished in a Prague ambush in 1942, Lena outlived his crimes by decades. Denazification proceedings in 1946 cost her the Prague villa, the Berlin apartment, and all Swiss accounts. But she retained half their Fehmarn Island property. By 1952, she had remarried a Finnish theatre director, taken his surname, and relocated to Finland. Anonymity that Germany could no longer offer. Her children scattered like they were told to. Different surnames. Different continents. Different lives. Elisabeth Hoss had no such luck with distance. She had lived directly adjacent to Auschwitz. Her husband Rudolf supervised the destruction of over 1 million lives. British forces arrested her on May 11, 1945. Still within sight of the gas chambers that had stopped operating 6 months earlier. Survivor testimony at her tribunal described her as fully aware. Comments about processing schedules. Complaints about inefficient transport delaying prisoner deliveries. Clothing and household items used daily, traced back to victims. For years imprisonment. Rudolf was hanged at Auschwitz in April 1947. Elizabeth emerged to discover his sentence had already been carried out. Their 5 children had lived in church orphanages throughout her imprisonment. After release, she became Elsa Hermann, a war widow from East Prussia. It worked for 15 years, until a former Auschwitz survivor recognized her face at a Munich market in 1960. Another relocation. Another name. A one-room apartment in rural Austria. She remained there until her death in 1989. What the Allied restitution records reveal is the scale of what these women lived inside. Emmy Goring's jewelry collection, valued at $200,000 in 1945, contained items traced to Jewish families across 6 countries. Lena Heydrich's bank accounts held funds directly transferred from SS confiscation operations in Czechoslovakia and Poland. Dinner china seized from Jewish households. Jewelry removed from concentration camp arrivals. Beds confiscated from deported families. The patterns across these women are consistent. Those who cooperated with Allied investigations received lighter sentences but permanent social exile. Those who maintained silence sometimes achieved anonymity, but lived under permanent threat of exposure. None returned to pre-war status. None recovered full identity. None escaped entirely. Their children changed names and left. Their grandchildren sometimes found out through school textbooks before anyone in the family told them anything. Some became missionaries. Some disappeared into offices and marriages and ordinary lives. Some defended the men. Most ran. In 2019, construction workers renovating a Munich apartment building discovered a sealed wall cavity. Inside, jewelry. Photographs. Documents belonging to Elizabeth Goring, Emmy's sister-in-law, who had died in 1975. The items traced to Jewish families in Berlin and Vienna. Hidden for 74 years while rightful heirs searched in vain. That jewelry now sits in a police evidence locker, awaiting identification by survivors or their descendants, some of whom may not yet know what their families lost. The accounting is still not finished.